But some things don't change, and some things I'm sick of. Like the constant perverted sexual thoughts. I'm so tired of those.
Well, that didn't age well at all. Thanks to the Me Too movement, our culture is finally discussing gross male behavior. I said discussing, not improving. But unfortunately, like all things, my favorite pastime is also riddled with sexism, misogyny, and objectification. I wondered if there is a game out there that maybe addresses all of this. At first I thought, probably not. However, I believe there is one game that I think uniquely speaks to the Me Too movement. It's just 18 years old. I'm sorry, Silent Hill 2, you're almost too old now for Drake. But really, Silent Hill 2 may not only be one of the best video games of all time, it also critiques the behaviors, ideals, and beliefs embedded deep into American masculinity. So especially if you're a hetero dude, you should replay Silent Hill 2. Let me explain. In the first Silent Hill released for the PS1 in 1999, our main character is Harry Mason, a dutiful father searching the anonymous town for his missing daughter and ultimately rescuing her from the clutches of a cult. While an excellent game and arguably the most viscerally terrifying experience in the series, I mean, just listen to this horrifying industrial soundtrack. Harry is a pretty straightforward character with pretty straightforward motivations, and he is basically the embodiment of the best dad ever shirt. So enter James Sunderland. Unlike Harry, James is complex. Silent Hill 2 is about James through and through, and as you explore the ever more disturbing and surreal maze that is the town of Silent Hill, what you're actually doing is uncovering the truth about James himself. So, a few disclaimers. 1. Spoilers to follow. The plot is the main selling point of Silent Hill 2. The twist ending is like one of the greatest in video game history, but this is a nearly 20-year-old game, so your call. 2. Yes, I am using the PS3 remaster because I am what one might gently call poor, and this is all I have. Now, if this bothers you, you can help promote this channel, and after we're monetized, I promise to do long plays and or analyses of Silent Hill 3 or 4 on the actual PS2. Deal? 3. Trigger warning. Silent Hill 2 is brilliant and compelling and unflinchingly discusses difficult topics like sexual assault. That means not only will this video cover those topics, but some of the game's imagery is disturbing. Please watch with caution. Here we go! We first meet James in one of the most disgusting bathrooms on the planet. He's come in search of his dead wife of 3 years, Mary, because, well,
I got a letter.
Apparently, Mary is somewhere in Silent Hill, a town the two vacationed at, and she's now waiting in their special place. James goes to find her despite the fact that Mary's dead, as various characters keep pointing out.
Didn't you say she died?
You said your wife Mary was dead, right?
These other characters have also been drawn to Silent Hill. Angela, a suicidal young woman, is looking for her mom. Eddie, an adult man who's internalized the bullying he suffered as a child. And of course, Maria, but we'll come back to her. As James, we begin to explore the town. I say we because Team Silent, the development team behind the first 4 games in the series, want you, the player, to really connect with James. All survival horror games like Silent Hill have a sense of helplessness embedded in the gameplay, such as limited save points like in Resident Evil, or the inability to fight in the recent Outlast series. Silent Hill is no different. The tank controls are abysmal. For those of you lucky enough to not know what I'm talking about, let me ruin your day. Rather than the fluid motion of other 3D games, you can only move forward by pressing up on the D-pad when using tank controls, forcing you to turn with left and right and then move forward with up. What that translates to gameplay-wise is James does a lot of walking, pivoting, and then walking in a different direction. Add this with fixed camera angles that vary from room to room, and you got a recipe for a lot of fucking nonsense. So rather than looking like a hero, James tends to smack into things and scrape his face along the wall. But that's kind of the point. James is just some dude, a regular guy, an everyman. They want you, the player, to relate to James. The game even uses first-person pronouns for item pickups and descriptions. James is clumsy just like you, gets winded after running, and is wearing a fucking polo under his jacket, for Christ's sakes. As a result, James is no match for the monsters that await him, because Silent Hill is crawling with terrifying creatures, sometimes literally. While Silent Hill 1 is an unsettling, intense experience, its monsters like these dogs and this pterodactyl and this giant moth really don't exist for any other reason than to be an enemy in the game. Except for these creepy fucking kids.
Let me see what you have! No!
The sequel, in contrast, features monsters that were originally only for Silent Hill 2, or rather, originally only for James. Because these monsters are the first indication there is more to our pretty blonde boy than meets the eye. As the game wears on, it becomes very clear James began to resent his wife during her long illness and began to grow sexually frustrated. And thus, every single monster James faces is a reflection of these guilt-ridden desires. The first creature you meet, the one that literally guides you into the town, is this disturbing bipedal thing called a straitjacket. They look like human men, except that the skin of their torso has now entrapped their arms and face, and so you can see their arms struggling inside their jacket of skin. And so they just kind of stumble around and attack by, Okay, so it's Dick. It's a giant walking dick monster. It's a really uncomfortable depiction of all-encompassing male desires, just like the kind James has, so they spend all game blowing their metaphorical loads all over your face. Buckle up, because it only gets weirder from here. Soon you encounter the mannequin, which is essentially just two bottom halves of female mannequins sewn together. They also emit these horrible women-like scream moans when struck. What kind of drives home the symbolism of the mannequin is the first time you encounter one. James enters an apartment to find a headless mannequin dressed like his wife. After you take the flashlight, the mannequin monster activates and you're forced to kill it. It's the first time the game directly associates Mary with disembodied vaginas. The mannequin monsters don't have a top half, and why would they need to in James' Twisted Desires? Silent Hill 2 is a game supremely aware of male sexual entitlement, and thus the monsters James encounters reflect this: the penis-like straitjacket and the double-legged mannequin. Phallic and yonic imagery dominate the game. Many of the game's puzzles involve James tentatively but insistently inserting himself into holes to remove objects. I mean, fuck, the town's welcome sign is missing an L, and now the sign proudly proclaims, "We come!" And look at this message found in Neely's bar. There was a hole here. It's gone now. Or this enemy that looks like body bags that have monstrous mouths between their feet. Fittingly, this creature is called Flesh Lips. Silent Hill is a town punishing James for viewing women as only sexual objects. So enter Pyramid Head. While this creature has become something of a mascot for the series, Pyramid Head is first and foremost specifically for James. In some sense, he is what James wishes he could be. In contrast to James' normal physique, Pyramid Head is bulging with muscles. Instead of being sexually frustrated, Pyramid Head seems to be sexually potent, wielding giant phallic weapons like his massive knife and spear. Because you know what they say about a guy with big triangles? He's got a big fucking life-ending knife. The first time you meet Pyramid Head, you simply find him watching you from the other side of some bars, a situation mimicking the game's opening cinematic. The game opens with James looking at himself, saves by looking at himself, and then presents the main antagonist as a mirror to James. And trigger warning, this is the second encounter with Pyramid Head. James watches seemingly simulated sex between Pyramid Head and two mannequins before Pyramid Head violently murders both of them. Pyramid Head then continually appears throughout the game, and he is the perfect intersection of James's violent sexual desires and the game's plot twist. So it's time for a quick plot detour. After surviving a fight with Pyramid Head, James meets Maria. Told you we'd come back to her. If Pyramid Head is a mirror for James, Maria is a mirror for Mary, the kind of woman James always wished his wife would be. Maria's clothes are a bit more revealing, she talks frankly about sex.
So the hotel was your special place, huh? I'll bet it was.
And works in a strip club. She's essentially Sexy Mary. Soon, however, inside the hospital where James fights a fuck ton of scary-ass sexy nurses, Maria begins to feel ill, just like Mary. Then Pyramid Head kills her. Then James finds her alive again. Then Pyramid Head kills her again. And again. Perhaps by now you've guessed what's coming. James killed his wife. He smothered her to death with a pillow. She's not been dead for 3 years. She's currently in the trunk of his car. And this revelation comes with a sizable amount of gameplay still to go. And now you, the player who has been guiding James for hours through Silent Hill, must now still play as him, even knowing what you know. It never fails to make me feel a little complicit in James's sins. This character I have been encouraged to relate to and control through the streets of Silent Hill is a murderer and certainly has some violent sexual fantasies, and I've helped him play them out. And now I have to get him to the end of the game. In retrospect, it all comes together. The scene of Pyramid Head assaulting the 2 mannequins, the body bags with lips, the constant murders of Maria. As Silent Hill 2 hurtles towards its ending, James and the other characters must come to terms with their crimes. James re-encounters Eddie, who it's revealed has gone on something of a shooting spree, killing first his bullies, his family, and now strangers because it makes him feel powerful. Well, that's not relevant at all. And then James re-encounters Angela. Angela is, for me, one of the best parts of the game and also one of the worst. Much like James, Angela's search for her mother is futile because she killed her. But it's a far more complicated situation. Angela is a survivor of sexual violence at the hands of her father. As a result, her unique Silent Hill and her unique monster are easily the most disturbing. So please, trigger warnings are at omega levels here. Just before the revelations about James, he finds Angela in a child's room with mechanical-like pistons and the flesh-covered walls. She is being attacked by a monster called the Abstract Daddy, a creature seemingly made out of a child-sized bed and a predatory adult man hiding underneath the sheets of flesh. The room you fight this abomination in is cramped with nowhere to run. It's a difficult battle unless you found Pyramid Head's knife in the hospital basement, which probably has a lot of symbolic meaning I don't even have time to unpack. However, remember, James is not a hero, and the game doesn't let you feel good about saving Angela. Instead, she says,
You're trying to be nice to me, right? I know what you're up to. It's always the same. You're only after one thing.
No, that's not true at all.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead and say it. Or you could just force me. Beat me up like you always did. You only care about yourself anyway.
And what I think the game is trying to make clear here is James's sexual entitlement exists on the same spectrum as Angela's father's crimes. While the world at large can pretty easily condemn the actions of Harvey Weinstein, Louis C.K., and Jeffrey Epstein, people, particularly men, are less quick to criticize things like Aziz Ansari's accusations, questionable college campus hookups, and the interactions regularly posted by the Twitter She Rates Dogs. But the thing is, these also exist on the same spectrum. What I and Silent Hill 2 are talking about is a cultural problem. In 2016, Confi, a health startup founded by the Harvard Business School, published a small research project on heterosexual men and women's expectations about sex. They found things like men more often than women thought sex more likely after going home with someone from a party, 45% versus 30%. And men are more likely to believe women need convincing to have sex, 24% versus 11%. However, the most disturbing finding for me was a question concerning understandings of consent. The researchers found 45% of the men polled agreed or strongly agreed that it's the woman's responsibility to explicitly say no if she wants to stop something sexual, and 38% of women agreed. Let me perhaps put that another way. 45% of the men polled do not think they have to ask for explicit consent from their partners. And if that doesn't convince you something is super fucked, I will also tell you in 2017, Pew found that the number one most valued quality in a woman by men is physical attractiveness. By having a character like Angela, a monster like the Abstract Daddy, and James's violent sexual fantasies stalking you throughout, Silent Hill 2 makes a strong argument that the true villain of the game is masculinity, or rather, men's attempts to reclaim masculinity. In his book, Angry White Men, sociologist Michael Kimmel diagnosed American white men with what he calls aggrieved entitlement. The sense that the benefits and perks you feel you are entitled to have been snatched away. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 working-age men are not working. That's about 20 million men without jobs. And instead of blaming corporations and the ever-growing economic inequality in America, men displace that anger, shame, and depression onto women, minorities, immigrants, etc., and feel drawn to symbolic acts of masculinity like gun ownership, aggressive sexual harassment, and violence. It is not by accident that James finds his first gun in a shopping cart. Team Silent knew what they were doing. This aggrieved entitlement is why men's rights activists are drawn to movies like Fight Club.
Raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact.
Violence, according to psychologist James Gilligan, begins in the fear of shame and ridicule and the overbearing need to prevent others from laughing at oneself by making them weep instead.
But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And the corpse can't laugh.
According to Kimmel, men's violence toward women happens when men's power breaks down, when his entitlement to that power is threatened and insecure. Violence is restorative, retaliatory. James even admits to this in one of the game's endings.
The truth is, part of me hated you for taking away my life.
All of the violence in the game, both on-screen and off, comes at the hands of men, or in Angela's case, as the result of male violence. And so James must accept responsibility for his actions. Recognizing he is no longer needed, Pyramid Head, or rather heads, impale themselves on their spears, and then we, the player, must also take responsibility for our actions. There are 6 different endings to Silent Hill 2, but 3 are joke endings, one involving aliens and the other a dog mastermind. The main 3 endings are achieved not by doing anything specific, like an Undertale where you refuse to kill anyone, or even the first Silent Hill where you basically just have to make a special potion. Silent Hill 2 instead awards endings based on how you actually play the game. Did you keep yourself healthy? Did you spend too much time with Maria? Did you ever look at Mary's photo or letter? Silent Hill 2 basically keeps track of your actions and then forces you to deal with the results. In all 3 endings, James fights the final boss, a demonic version of his wife strapped to her hospital bed. Woo! Talk about waking up on the wrong side of the bed! And in all 3, James must deal the final blow to a now powerless enemy, whimpering his name. But here's where they all differ. In the Maria ending, James fails to learn his lesson, re-kills his wife, and then leaves Silent Hill with a coughing Maria, implying the cycle of death and misogyny is only to continue. In the Leave ending, James leaves Silent Hill with Laura, a little girl he meets throughout. I haven't really talked about her because I'm not really convinced that she exists. It doesn't really make sense for a real little girl to be wandering around Silent Hill, so I think she might be a Maria-like entity, and so then this ending is also bad. And finally, we have the In Water ending. And while there isn't an official canonical ending, most feel this ending is the canon ending for a buttload of reasons I don't have time to get into. But here's why I think it's the best ending. It's not the ending we want, but it's the ending we deserve. Don't say a goddamn word, Morgan Freeman. You got your own problems. But maybe deserve isn't the right word. It's the ending that is sadly the most realistic. According to the CDC, 77% of the 45,000 people who kill themselves every year in the United States is male. It is far more common among white men than any other race. And suicide is far more common among white men than any other race. Please, 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 please do not think I am advocating that anyone should kill themselves, even men who have committed horrendous crimes. My point is that men are emotionally isolated, taught to repress emotions and not pursue formal health care. While suicide cannot be attributed to any one thing, the factors the CDC have narrowed down skew heavily male. Relationship problems, physical and/or mental health problems, money and job trouble, and access to firearms. Guess who has a lot of those? James Sunderland. Ultimately, the point I'm trying to make is Silent Hill 2 is extremely relevant right now. Is it perfect? Nope. As I said, Laura is a weird character, item usage is a fucking chore, the labyrinth section is just annoying. Seriously, why the fuck is he down here? And the puzzles can make absolutely zero sense. Why are light bulbs in a can?
Huh.
But it is also a game that manages to analyze the disturbing side of masculinity in a way that both horrifies and saddens. I feel for James, and I also really hate him. He's selfish and never truly manages to recognize the severity of the violence inflicted on the women around him.
I'm glad you're alive. Angela, relax.
Don't order me around!
But I, the player, am also complicit with him, and I have to decide what he ultimately deserves. Silent Hill 2 is a game about reflection and coming to terms with your actions. And I think more than ever, we have to do the same. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this, please tell your friends and hit that subscribe button. Also, you can go read this excellent article published last year in The Atlantic that inspired this video. It's about Nabokov's infamous Lolita and how it may also be an important read in the wake of the Me Too movement. Finally, tell us what you want to see in the comments below. We got ideas, but also we want to know what you want to see. Again, thanks and bye.